Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I'm your host, Charles. Along with me, as always, my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and animator, Jacob Galoth. How you doing today, Jacob?
Ooh, I am Jacoby. Swell, Charles. Excited, enthusiastic, because I know
that's what we love.
You've got a new pitch, and I'm ecstatic.
I do have a pitch. You're ecstatic. I am going to do something a little bit different this week with a pitch. Simply because it's a fun little reveal happens, so I'm not going to tell you the title right now. I'm not even going to give you the opening, little paragraph to tell you what it's about. I'm just going to start into it, and then we'll come back to that stuff. Okay. So, pilot starts, right? We descend onto this alien world, right? This strange planet, and there's like this pseudo feudal Japan sort of like medieval peasant style civilization, right? This tiny little town on this weird alien world, and we don't really get a good look at the people. They're all cloaked in shadow or like wearing big hats and hoods and stuff, and the only person that we can fully make out is a man, right? He's in this big armor, you can't see his face, big like sort of priestly armor. Can't see his face, and he's standing on this massive stage, almost kind of like a Western, like cowboy style, I forget, gallows, right? He's standing on these gallows, right? And he's talking to the huge congregation of these strange alien people. And sitting before him is a man, right? On his hands and knees, arms tied behind his back, in this strange clothing that almost looks Earth-like clothing, and a bag over his head, right? We can't see him. And this preacher guy is talking to his congregation, and he's talking about how there is a great evil in this galaxy that has come to them and has attempted to halt their revolution, has attempted to stop them from freeing themselves from the chains of oppression. Right, that this man, the one that they have in front of him, and he gestures towards the guy with the bag on his head. This man is the agent of these horrible masters, of these people who want to keep us down and keep us in the dirt. He comes from an ugly, horrific society, and he himself is ugly and horrific. And then the pastor guy rips the bag off of the head of the man. And we, cut to behind the back shot so we can't see the guy's face. And the whole crowd, right, they gasp in horror and awe, and they're disgusted and they're horrified. You see babies start to cry, children run away, women faint, men hold their stomachs.
Can I take a guess?
Right, like it's a whole thing. Sure, take a guess.
It's Jimmy King.
See, normally I would say maybe, but Jimmy King's he's not an interplanetary kind of guy. He just stays on Earth. He stays in America. No, we turn the camera around and we see one Henry Weird. Oh, that's right. Captain Weird
I didn't
is
see that
back
coming.
On the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast, Captain Weird and the affair of corporate exportation. That's the name. God. I probably got a little loud on that one. But that's the name of this series, right? And it'll flash across when we see Captain Weird. And he's like there, and he's like, oh, come on, you guys. Because everyone's talking about how ugly and hideous he is. And that's when we kind of reveal that these townsfolk, right, they're not humans. They're not regular people. They're like rat men. They're big, like, scavy, horrible rat creatures. But they are, like, a feudal society, and Henry Weird starts talking shit to them. He starts talking about how he's not, going to be held here. He's not going to be like one of a martyr, a murder victim to their cause. He doesn't care about them and their stupid idiot revolution. He doesn't give a shit, right? And he's going to get out of here in a minute. And then everyone just kind of looks around like, what the fuck? What's he talking about? And they think something's going to happen. And it's just a moment, and nothing happens. And Captain Weird goes, well, it's being a little hyperbolic. It's not going to be a minute. It'll probably take and as he's like fumbling over his words, a World War II style biplane flies over top of the village, and we can see the mechanic manning the double-barreled machine gun at the bottom of the plane, firing down onto the feudal civilization, right? Killing guards and people, attacking them and destroying their outposts and that sort of things. And we see an Earthling man flying the plane as he waves at Captain Weird and deploys these like sort of android automatons to free Captain Weird and like get the pastor and put them all in handcuffs and kind of get the whole town under control, right? And we have like a big fun action sequence to start out. Captain Weird, right? Typical Indiana Jones style. He gets down and he's ready for a scrap, and then he's like picks a fight with some guy, and the guy like gets off the ground, and he's like 2.5 feet taller than Captain Weird, and Captain Weird kind of like, yikes. Ugh. But he gets to the fight and he's fighting him, and I think I may be recasting Captain Weird's handgun, right? Because I know in previous episodes, by the way, if you're interested, Captain Weird has appeared in 2 previous episodes of the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. Episode 91's Captain Weird, Space Hero of Tomorrow, and episode 175, Captain Weird and the Journey into Oblivion.
I am so impressed.
That's right, boys and girls. Captain Weird, like he, instead of like a cool, crazy space pistol, he's got more like a 1911 World War II gun that's been like sort of made more sci-fi-y, like sort of more similar to Deckard's gun from Blade Runner, but it's not a laser pistol. It's still like just a handgun, right?
Yeah.
So he shoots the guy and the bullets don't do anything, and then he has to get in this fist fight, and he's got to use his like weight to, his smaller size and stature to like jump on the guy's back, and he, slams him into a wall a few times. Captain Weird gets him in a headlock. The guy passes out. The mechanic comes down, right? We see him again. He's great. Cypher sore eyes, and he's got like tons of robots and big machine guns, and he's like ready to go, and just as like he gets out of the ship, the town has been taken over, and he's kind of got like murder blue balls, and that's when we, it's all funny. And then Lee Reynolds, the captain of the ship, of the plane, right? Are they called captains? Pilots, sorry. I'm an idiot. The pilot of the World War II plane, like he gets out and he shakes Captain Weird's hand, and they talk, right? And Lee Reynolds is like, hey mate, I understand why we did what we did here today, and I'm not sad I saved you, but like I don't feel great about this, right? Like I'm an American soldier, right? People fighting for their freedoms is kind of like what I'm all about. And to be out here, so far away from home, like destroying people's, chances at freedom from corporate servitude, that really isn't getting to me. It's kind of making me unhappy. And Captain Weird's like, yeah, I know, man, I feel the same way, but there's not really anything we could do about it. We're trapped. We kind of get the impression from all 3 of them, from Reynolds, Weird, and the mechanic, that they're kind of like, they're doing this, but they don't really want to be doing this, right? Captain Weird and the mechanic get back onto Captain Weird's ship. The mechanic takes off, and he's off to the next planet that they need to go to, as Captain Weird opens up an issue of the Transtemporal Times and falls asleep in his captain's chair. That's why I was asking if it was Temporal Times or Transtemporal Times earlier, by the way. And then we get an advertisement. I told you there would be all sorts of fun stuff in this episode. We get an advertisement for Cuda Corp, right? And if you hadn't figured, this is the idea that you had in The Revolution Will Be Televised that I built off of in space and stuff like that. I'm doing that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Cuda Corp, having problems with, intergalactic revolutionaries, looking to dissuade those silly students or topple those evil corporations, contact Cuda Corp, at the forefront of asset retention, security, and if need be, extermination, right? And that's their whole thing. And if you couldn't tell, Captain Weird and the Mechanic have been forced into servitude for Cutacorp, and have become part of the program, right? They are actually sometimes the whole program. The whole asset retention, security, and extermination program. They're arseholes. If you hadn't noticed, it says arse. The arse task force. But there are other characters who are involved in this task force who go across the galaxy, like stomping revolutions and stuff like that. And we're gonna meet them throughout the show. But back to the pilot. After this, advertisement for Cutacorp plays, Captain Weird and the Mechanic, they're just kind of talking about their stuff, and they talk about the Cartel of Broken Chains, which is this massive intergalactic cartel that's been traveling across the galaxy, and they've been following them. And it's basically, it's led by this mysterious, anonymous, magnanimous leader, right? I said 3 words that ended in "aus," which is pretty sick, who has been providing weapons, technology, and information to, what's the word for, like, a civilization that is, being held underfoot, right? Whatever. Has been providing, like, all this stuff to civilizations that have been held underfoot by various corporations or governments, stuff like that, and asks for nothing in return. And so Cutacorp has never been busier sending out their agents to stomp on revolutions, right? That's their whole business model.
Yeah.
And so they're traveling, and they're tracking down the head of the Cartel of Broken Chains, who, is the problem that they all have to deal with throughout the entire show, for most of it, at least. And I didn't really have a second half of the episode. I just had the first thing, and then the opening, and then the thing. Do you want them to go to a different planet, or do you want them to go back to the Cutacorp ship, Armada ship, where they have a conversation with their handler, and we meet the rest of the team? I answered my own question. That's what we're doing. Yeah. They go back and they meet the rest of the team, and then they, at the very end of the episode, they'll be like, all right, your next assignment is here, and they hand them a planet, and that's how the episode ends. But right now, I'm going to introduce you to the rest of the team, right? Ooh. So we have Princess Mark, a Flarn princess with extensive battle training. She comes from a culture where owning and loving are seen as the same thing. And so when Cutacorp purchased her from her family, she, believes them to love her, right? And so she has this undying devotion to Cutacorp, because owning and loving are the same thing to her, right? Then we have Major Line, who is a Catman from the future, who rents out his services to Cutacorp in order to maintain his planet's autonomy from their various machinations of evil doing, We have Lee Reynolds, who you've already met. He is a World War II fighter pilot who was lost in temporal experiments that were happening in the Bermuda Triangle at the time, and was put on ice, basically Captain America style, sent into the far future and purchased by Cutacorp, firstly as kind of an interesting, conversation piece. Basically, he's like a fun coffee table book, but turns out he's actually a really good pilot and a very useful tool to have in their war against revolution. And so they unfroze him, and they keep him as sort of an indentured servant, slave. And Android 1573, who's our final robot, our final team member. And he is a peacekeeping robot, like a, friendly, nice robot who is there to, keep the peace and help people and be a good guy, right? Who was reprogrammed to do war and kill and violence, right? And so his head is constantly talking about love and niceties and the benefits of being polite, and that sort of thing, while his body is just committing the most horrific atrocities that you could ever imagine in your entire life, right? And Captain Weird and the Mechanic are not going to be with the whole gang each episode. I'm imagining how the standard episode's going to go is that the Mechanic and Captain Weird are deployed to a new planet that we have no knowledge of, and they come to this planet and they meet the revolutionaries and they meet the people in charge, and they attempt to foster like non-violent solution to this, dispute, but that never works because Kuda Corp never allows it to work, and so they have to use violence because violence plays better on the intergalactic advertisements. And so they then have to defeat the revolutionaries, give the planet to the corporations or governments or private individuals, whoever's holding this planet, hostage basically, and then move on. And the entire width and breadth of the show, you're never allowed to think that what Captain Weird and the Mechanic are doing is a good thing, nor are either of them happy about it, but they both have to do it, because they have Suicide Squad style intercranial explosives, implanted in their brains that keep them on the straight and narrow, so to say, right? Sorry, just taking a sip of my coffee. Cup of joe. Now, before we get to the sort of, I'm not gonna say it's the twist of the show, but kind of like we get to the final third of the first season, it kind of changes. Do you have any ideas for planets that they could go to or societies they could meet, and deal with revolution on?
I think a fun one would be So what's their goal when they get to these planets, so that I can shape what I'm about to say here?
Well, the goal is basically just and what was the goal of the CIA in South America during the 70s and 80s, right? It's basically destabilize revolutionary governments in order to allow corporate interests to take control of the planet, right?
Okay.
So they can do that however they want, right? They could infiltrate the revolution, go undercover, or they could just go in guns blazing. They could get a military escort and just drive to the middle of the revolution and kill the guy who's in charge.
Does it always
right?
have to be a revolutionary society, or is it could it be a stable society that they go in and they fuck up just so that
that could also be it.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I was thinking that there's a planet of people that it's a maybe they could have had a revolution and now they're basically a theocracy, but it's a little funny because they define everything they do off of a single book, and unknown to them, this book that fell on their planet hundreds of thousands of years ago,
millennia ago,
is a cookbook for another planet, thousands and thousands of miles or light years away.
A Flarkson cookbook.
And so they basically, it's this really, and they pull out these vague abstractions from these recipes, yes, 2 dashes of salt in the fire. That means that, if your neighbor takes your cow, you have to burn his family.
You have to cut their hands off. Yeah.
Their whole society is built on this, taking these ideas from this book from really far away. Mm-hmm. And then you can send in these guys in, and they their goal is to introduce them to other cookbooks to sell them is kind of the idea.
Yeah. Introduce them to Kuda Corp's, proprietary cookbook that has every recipe you need to, serve flambéed revolutionary.
And now there's competing cookbook cults who have completely different views of society because of these cookbook translations, and it just causes essentially a huge. It's like the what's it called? It's like the introduction of the Protestantism in Europe. Now we have 1 billion different religious sects behind these different cookbooks, and there's all these like super fervent wars about how you interpret recipes and such.
Yeah, you have one group starts reading a vegan cookbook, and they somehow interpret that to be like to turn them into, you know, killers, and they just like slaughter everything that they can find to create soy. They're unable to figure out how to make soy, so they're like, what if we just kill enough? We can make soy. Or whatever. I like that a lot. I was thinking of maybe they would go to a culture where like money is not like, they don't use currency in the traditional sense. It's more like memories. I think that could be a fun, interesting way of doing it. But it's all to just get to the point of basically Captain Weird is not a bad guy, but he's doing bad things because he has to. And these revolutionaries are, you know, they're not bad people. But he has to find them, and if he stops the cartel of broken chains, he will be freed from his servitude, and then he'll be able to do good again, right? So he's like, this is what I have to do. And so they're just kind of going to planet, and they're tracking down the cartel of broken chains, their enigmatic leader, right? And they don't know much about him. They know he's like human-ish. He's got like strange powers over like mechanics and machines, but they don't really know anything about him. And so they, you know, through various means, they find him. It doesn't really matter how they track him down, right? They, like, find a weapon that has a specific, you know, marking on it that means it was made on this planet. They go to that planet. They find out, blah, blah, like, whatever. It's an investigation that they're doing in the middle of, like, gunfights and laser battles and, you know, fist fights with crazy monsters and stuff like that. Because it's still a Captain Weird action-adventure, Flash Gordon-esque TV show. Mm-hmm. And they're eventually captured by the head of the cartel of broken chains, this strong, powerful leader, and they're brought before him, and they're absolutely defenseless, but they're still talking back and being belligerent because that's what Captain Weird knows how to do. And the leader turns around, he throws off his cloak, and who is it? Who is it, Jake? Tell me. Who do you think it is?
Give me a hint and all.
Doctor
Destructinator, hell yeah.
Exactly, it's Dr. Destructinator. Because who else would Henry Weird have a problem with? Because the whole point of this show is making Henry Weird look like a dick. Because the bad guy of his story is just a legitimate hero. You know?
I love Dr. Destructinator.
Dr. Destructinator is great. And I kind of feel like we forgot that he has power over machines, right? That's like one of his superpowers. It's his superpowers. He has power over machines. And so, you know, the Task Force X style, like bombs in his heads, they begin to beep, right? Which means they're going to blow up, right? And hopefully kill Dr. Destructinator in the process. But then he stops them with his mechanical, you know, telepathy, and he disarms the bombs in their skulls, and they have, you know, their cartel scientists remove them for study, right? And so Henry Weird and the mechanic they're freed, but they're like, Doctor, why did you do this? Like, you hate me. I ruined your life. You know, I took everything from you. Why'd you do this? And he's like, I need your help, right? Ooh. We are going to take the fight to Kuda Corp. We're going to destroy them. We're going to stop them from ever doing this again, right? Because the amphibinoids from the last show that they were in together, do you remember? We'll flash back to them. After Dr. Destructinator was left for dead in the temple by Henry Weird, he managed to make it back to the amphibinoid temple, or their village, and he was taken care of until a Kuda Corp ship arrived and basically just claimed the planet for Kuda Corp and slaughtered as many amphibinoids as they could, you know, while still maintaining a population large enough to, you know, harvest materials. He saw basically the worst of like this capitalist hellscape civilization. And so he decided to fight against it. And we kind of get like you remember the end of Mad Max Fury Road? When all this time the characters are going in one direction and then they decide to turn around and go in the other direction, right?
Yeah.
That's what the third act of this season is Henry Weird and the Mechanic being convinced by Dr. Destructinator to turn back and help the revolution, help the Cartel of Broken Chains to tear down the Coup de Corp and replace it with something better, something that will actually improve the lives of the galaxy and not just pad the pockets of investors and corporate CEOs. And Henry Weird, after a little bit of convincing, right, agrees, and they prepare for a fierce battle, bro. You know, and this is basically, we kind of do what they always do at the end of TV shows like this, where all of the civilizations that we visited throughout the series, right, they all have representatives there, and they've all got weird ships, you know, in this kind of this crazy, you know, uniform armada against this, like, ragtag, you know, fleet of ships, with Henry Weird and Dr. Destructinator's two ships being the flags, you know, flagships of the armada, and all the others, you know, following them into battle, and they're utilizing, you know, tactics that they've used throughout the show, right, like different maneuvers for your planes and like all this fun stuff. And we'll have, you know, characters from, you know, planets, right, say the third planet, the religion planet, right, the cookbook religion planet.
Hell yeah.
They'll have like a sect who they are reading one of the cookbooks and it like divining instructions on how to fly the plane perfectly from the cookbook, right? Fun stuff like that.
It'll be a little silly if in there, if like in like while they're, you know, they have this, when they have the big meeting, right? And you know they're like arguing about everything. There's one cookbook like party or whatever, like member of, like, you know, because it's like a conglomeration of them. He's like, well, we can't trust this Henry guy. You know, our book's against it. And he's like, wow, I mean, what does your book actually say that, you know, will say you guys don't like me? It says, it says fuck Henry. What was his last name again?
Weird.
And I thought it was his actual name? Last name?
Yeah, it's the name's Henry Weird.
I thought Weird was... Okay, maybe not. Anyway, it says, like, fuck Henry Weird. It's like, I can't actually say that. You know, it's probably like, you know, give me 2 dashes of charcoal or something. And he looks in the book and it says, fuck Henry Weird. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the only literal thing.
And then he turns back to the, like... He turns back to the author of the book, and it's Kevin, the assistant from the first series. He's just got his picture on the thing and a middle finger pointed at it. And like, yep, cute. Great. Which I think it would just be fun. And then, you know, we do kind of a Star Wars, the beginning of Revenge of the Sith situation where there's like a really fun, energetic spaceship battle, right? At the very, you know, for the first half of the battle. And then Henry Weird, the Mechanic, and Dr. Destructinator get into the main ship of the Armada, and they battle their way through. Captain Weird's got his jetpack and his pistol and his wits. Dr. Destructinator has his sort of like Doctor Doom-esque outfit, but no mask yet. Doctor Doom-esque outfit, and he's, you know, controlling machines, and like lasers are bouncing off of him, and the Mechanic is like swinging from the ceiling and like shooting guys and like hacking robots and shit like that. And so they're all like, everybody saves each other, because that has to happen, you know. Somebody's behind Dr. Destructinator, and Henry Weird shoots him in the face before he can attack the Doctor. Doctor, like, crushes a bunch of guys who are about to kill Henry, right? All this fun stuff. Until eventually they get to the head of Coup de Corp, right? And he's this very old man, like, looks centuries old. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Coup de Corp was established in 2156, right? It is currently like 3122, right? This company's been around forever. And so this crazy old man he's got kind of like a similar glimmer in his eyes, right? You almost recognize him, but you don't. And he, you know, has all of these ridiculous powers because this is very obviously a take on the like Emperor battle, you know, at the end of Return of the Jedi. It's whatever. Eventually, you know, Henry Weird, Dr. Destructinator, and the Mechanic, using their, like, abilities and their power together and, teamwork, they eventually defeat him, right? And then all of the Emperor's I'm just calling him the Emperor. He's not. He's called the CEO or whatever, CFO. But all of the CEOs, cameras turn on to him, and it's this massive broadcast that is broadcast across the entire galaxy to every planet that Kudacorp has taken over or helped to destabilize. And Henry Weird looks out at them, and he immediately begins to talk about how Dr. Destructinator was the secret evil bad guy who was running Kudacorp the entire time, and that he, Henry Weird, is solely responsible for the, for the safety and health of the entire galaxy, and how he and Moncanic freed all of these civilizations from the grip of Kudacorp, and Dr. Destructinator was an evil mastermind, right? Because a Henry Weird show cannot end without Henry Weird fucking over Dr. Destructinator.
Oh, yes.
It's one of the cardinal things that he does. And so, in a moment of panic, he just blames all of the evil shit he did over the last, show that we watched on Dr. Destructinator, making Dr. Destructinator one of the most wanted men in the galaxy, causing him to don an evil-looking mask, right? Because duh. And Henry Weird becomes the space hero of tomorrow, right? And that's how the show ends. Captain Weird and the affair of corporate exportation. That's my show. That's what I had. That's what I wrote.
I like it. I was not expecting Captain Weird. I fucking love Captain Weird, so that was very exciting. Dr. Destructinator is he's a legend.
He's great. I was, when you asked earlier about Captain Weird, I was like, oh, fuck, I answered too quickly, right? He's gonna know something's up.
Because I asked you what his villain's name was, and you're like, Dr. Destructinator.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything to add? Any requests?
I don't know. I think I might have to start making that's 3 now. I think I'm gonna have to make a Captain Weird playlist now, because he's he's reached the he's reached ascendancy. He's his own product.
He's one of the characters.
Yeah.
He's up there with Jimmy King and Isaac Illich.
Mm-hmm. I think this is the so Res Publica, Captain Weird, and the collection of Jimmy King stories are the only shows that we've done 3 episodes about. Now.
We've done 3 Isaac Illiches.
Well, sure. Isaac Illich is its own thing, because we've done like 5 of those.
He's his own. He's basically the channel's mascot at this point.
Yeah.
And I think both of us were cast as henchmen on the Kudacorp Armada ship, right? We're just 2 idiots who are working for the evil corporation shooting lasers,
Yeah.
And the henchman style.
The latest product.
Oh, we designed the logo. We're just like, no, more circles. It's got to be more circles. Why do you like circles so much? Just more circles. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles. Along with me has always been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and animator, Jacob Gloth. How you doing today, Jacob? Good. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat. Remember, we'll be here next week with a brand new television series for you to imagine and enjoy. You could probably tell, I'm doing a freestyle rap sort of thing, I'm moving my hands and body,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What? Thanks, everyone. Have a good night, everyone.
Goodbye.